Anticipate objections. But wait, you say. Isn't the advice to incorporate critical views a recipe for destroying your credibility and undermining your argument? Here you are, trying to say something that will hold up, and we want you to tell readers all the negative things someone might say against you? Exactly. We are urging you to tell readers what others might say against you. But our point is that doing so will actually enhance your credibility, not undermine it. As we argue throughout this book, writing well does not mean piling up uncontroversial truths in a vacuum. It means engaging others in a dialogue or debate, not only by opening your text with a summary of what others have said, as we suggest in Chapter 1, but also by imagining what others might say against your argument as it unfolds. Once you see writing as an act of entering a conversation, you should also see how opposing arguments can work for you rather than against you. Paradoxically, the more you give voice to your critics' objections, the more you tend to disarm those critics, especially if you go on to answer their objections in convincing ways. When you entertain a counter-argument, you make a kind of preemptive strike, identifying problems with your argument before others can point them out for you. Furthermore, by entering counter-arguments, you show respect for your readers, treating them not as gullible dupes who will believe anything you say, but as independent critical thinkers who are aware that your view is not the only one in town. In addition, by imagining what others might say against your claims, you come across as a generous, broad-minded person who is confident enough to open himself or herself to debate, like the writer and the figure on the following page. Conversely, if you don't entertain counter-arguments, you may very likely come across as closed-minded, as if you think your beliefs are beyond dispute. You might also leave important questions hanging and concerns about your arguments unaddressed. Finally, if you fail to plant a naysayer in your text, you may find that you have very little to say. Our own students often say that entertaining counter-arguments makes it easier to generate enough text to meet their assignment's page-length requirements. Planting a naysayer in your text is a relatively simple move, as you can see by looking at the following page from a book by the writer Kim Chernin. Having spent some 30 pages complaining about the pressure on American women to be thin, Chernin inserts a whole chapter entitled The Skeptic, opening it as follows. At this point, I would like to raise certain objections that have been inspired by the skeptic in me. She feels that I have been ignoring some of the most common assumptions we all make about our bodies, and these she wishes to see addressed. For example, you know perfectly well, she says to me, that you feel better when you lose weight. You buy new clothes, you look at yourself more eagerly in the mirror. When someone invites you to a party, you don't stop and ask yourself whether you want to go. You feel sexier. Admit it. You like yourself better. Kim Chernin, The Obsession. Reflections on the Tyranny of Slenderness. The remainder of Chernin's chapter consists of her answers to this inner skeptic. In the face of the skeptic's challenge to her book's central premise, that the pressure to diet seriously harms women's lives, Chernin responds neither by repressing the skeptic's critical voice nor by giving into it and relinquishing her own position. Instead, she embraces that voice and writes it into her text. Note, too, that instead of dispatching this naysaying voice quickly, as many of us would be tempted to do, Chernin stays with it and devotes a full paragraph to it. By borrowing some of Chernin's language, we can come up with templates for entertaining virtually any objection.